Hello and welcome. Right, guys, so we're going to talk about today is something different. Again, I don't normally do this because you guys know I don't like reading out from websites. Even though they're good sources of information, I find it tiresome and monotonous because obviously how we speak. So I try only reading out a little bit, but I found some information in the week and it's new information, and although it paints a different picture slightly of things that I have researched heavily like Janus, you'll see why, and you're in for a ride. Some people will say yes, they knew it, and they'll be lying because we know there's always some of them. There's some people like me who generally say nope, not seen this before, but that's like life. So it's all cool, it's all information, and you know how I look at everything as information because that way we don't get triggered and I'm going to contradict myself, but I'm reading out someone's information. They don't know the stuff that I've researched and connected. But it's always good to get a fresh perspective on something you've never looked into before, and this is what this is. I'm looking into something that I've just come across and I found it that fascinating I had to share it with you. So how I look at information is slightly based on what history classes as fact. And I'm going to use this analogy now so you can basically catch up, and then I'm going to go through this article, this website, and just show you and talk about it as we're going through. You're going to enjoy it, guys. So the analogy I use for information is what you're going to see on screen now. I'm going to go through with it. I find it fascinating because it's based literally on what accounts it from history. It's based on so-called facts. I know we use that loosely, but this is what it said. So picture a building. Now this is information, an analogy of information which is basically used in the real world. So the bottom floor, as you can see, and some places have basements, but we'll not go too far. The bottom floor, the ground floor, is the original source of information. It's the original tale. It's whatever's written tied to the word historia, the Latin historia, which means basically investigation, inquiry, research, account, description, written account of past events and so on. That's where the word historia comes from, and I want to use it in this way. Think about the first floor then, and it's basically in America this is called, but over here we call them floors, but we know what both are. So the first floor in America and around the world are called stories. First story, second story, third story. Now in medieval times, or the Middle England, or whatever you want to call it, they used to paint fake windows on buildings. And also, this be where the account of stained glass comes from on different levels of floors? And they talk around how windows, I mean, what would you use for windows? You look out at them, so you're seeing life pass you by. So all the stories, all the windows have different stories. Hence where the name story come from. So each floor has a different story because your perspective is changed from the floor below. So this is information. We get the information from source, the source of the information. Then the first story will change. That information will change. You will add what you think you heard and add your little bit to it, your little influence in your life. You then go to the next floor and so on and so on. And the stories, like the second story and the third story, will be different to what it is on the first story or the ground. It's like Chinese whispers. But the analogy stands true to me. It's weird that you think, where did the word stories for the floors come from? And it come from that. These painted windows basically told a story. And it's true, isn't it? You look out your room, your window, you see life, and then you go higher, you see life again, and it's a little bit different, and so on and so on. You can see a little bit more. You feel the view changes, the aspect changes. So this is how information changes from the ground floor. You will get it off someone else, and think about it as, well, how do they get the information? Well, most buildings will either have stairs or an elevator. And people will pop in and out of the elevator telling you what's happened on the ground floor and what's happened on the third floor and what's happened on the second story, third story, the 11th story, and so on and so on. So all these influences from the people coming out of the L's influence the story. Now, is the original story fact? Who knows, because we don't know who told it or who wrote it. But this is how I like to look at information. I don't discount it, even if it doesn't agree with me. And this is what this I'm reading out today is. I don't agree with everything. They don't look into the information I've looked into, pinpoint who is the major influence in this reality. But it's a different story. It's a different source of information than I've seen before. And I thought you guys would have to basically read it through me, and I'll put the link in the description also. So it's cool, isn't it, how the literal name Storey came out of actually the story of life and how different it would be. So you think about it, different stories have different stories. Literally. Right, guys. But what's got me excited and looking into this information that I want to read out in a minute is when I'm talking about the different stories, the different floors, and the elevators and the office worker who delivers the mail or whatever goes on the supplies. Sorry. They are going floor by floor. So these guys are the interpreters. Now, if you're wondering why is it going about interpreters, this is key to what I'm going to read out today. It's something I didn't look at before, and again, how did I miss this is the name of the title. But they are the interpreters of the source information. So from different floors, these interpreters are changing the story, the source, because they're interpreting it different. And interpreters, as I've just been reading up, basically use oral words. So interpreters are using the oral words and passing it on orally, whereas translators generally specifically deal with written, changing the different written accounts. So this is what they're doing orally, going between each floor, interpreting the information. Hey, did you hear what's happened on story 2? And that'll be changed to the 3rd, and then another interpreter will come down and hear this and go, oh, I'm going up to the 3rd story, and I will tell the guys up there, and then that will be changed. So these guys are orally passing on the information, and that's how it gets changed, because we're acting as interpreters. We interpret things differently because how we see things influence how we interpret. So you'll soon see, but I just found this bit fascinating. Right, so here goes. So this is on a site called Herbert W. Armstrong, and I don't know what I was originally looking for to get it. I think I was just looking into something personal again in regard to Janus, looking for different things, because I always try to keep up to date with my research, but I don't know what I typed. I don't know if I mistyped something and this come up. So as always, I want to say this is Herbert W. Armstrong's work. I don't agree with everything. I don't disagree with everything. It's just information, and that's why I put that analogy before. This is someone else's beliefs and opinions on what they see, and it's opened my eyes to a few things. I don't see everything, far from it. I miss a lot of things. Some of you guys recommend stuff like this a lot, but sometimes you're supposed to be in a place at a certain time, and I believe this was one of those things. I was meant to mistype and find this to look into, to open my eyes to a few things. The reason it's got me going wow is because obviously I've been talking about us living in a cave and all that assumptions that goes with that and connections to stone. This just blew me away, and you'll know what I mean when I start reading it out. I will put the link in the description, and I just want to say thank you to the person who did this site for the information they've gathered, and that's how everything should be. People sometimes get caught up, people change, and people don't want you to change. So here you go. So this is all about Simon Magus. Obviously I've done a little bit on Simon Magus a long time ago in one of the videos, but this is where it gets interesting. So Simon Magus series, Peter was in Rome 2000 years BC. So some of these, when they're doing this information, some of them have not got stuff like, for instance, this talks about Noah and the flood, and obviously Noah's tied to Janus also. It doesn't mention Janus in here, which caught my eye, but it blew me away. So who was the first Peter of Rome? What were his successors called? The history of ancient religion reveals the plain truth about the original Peter of Rome. The truth about the real successors is now clear to us, but hidden to the world. Here is what history shows us of the original Peter of Rome. The truth is startling. The Bible records that in the earliest ages, right after the flood of Noah, men began to rebel against the teachings of God. They began to build cities, found religions, bringing idolatries, pagan temples were erected. Now, as I've showed you in many videos from old books, Janus, who is a Peter, taught humans to build cities, walled cities. He taught them how to live under law and religion, and is known as Noah. So this is going to be a long one. And this talks about pagan temples were erected, the Tower of Babel came on the scene. All of these things started within the first 200 years of the flood. Pagan gods called Peters. Surprising as it may sound, it is well-known fact among students of ancient religion that the chief pagan gods worshipped in the early civilizations were generally known by the name Peter. It is also known that the priests of those heathen gods were also called Peters. The same name in one form or was even applied to the pagan temples consecrated to those gods. Notice what Brian in his work Ancient Mythology says. Not only the gods, but the Hierophanti, special priests, temples, and those priests in particular were occupied in the celebration of mysteries were called Peters or Petras. Let me just move that across because I've had to enlarge it so some of you can read along. There we go. We're called Patras, which is obviously in regard to Peter. This is significant. The word patri or Peter, or however you want to pronounce it, is the same as pator or Peter in the meaning and pronunciation. Brian continues, patri was undoubtedly a religious term, the same as Petor and Patora. The ancient pagan gods, the priests who were the ministers and the sacred sanctuaries, their temples, were all called Peters or Petors or Peters. And it's funny that Tor's in it because Tor means door. Either spelling is acceptable since vowels are fluid in all languages, especially the Semitic. The meaning of Peter. What did the word Petor or Peter really mean to the ancients? Surprisingly enough, the word in the Bible, when Moses wrote about the Egyptian priests, he shows they were called Peters or interpreters. Now, can you see why I put that in? Because that blew me away. Interpreters. Peter. Peter. And obviously, if you say it slowly, inter means buried. Buried the dead. Buried under the ground. Buried like a stone, a rock. Inter, you were interred in a body. Welcome to the Black Sheep Intermission. I'm here just to break it up a little bit, and I thought while we're talking about rock and stone and the Peters, I'd share some things I found on some more holy sites and more holy rocks for you guys to look at. So it'll break it up a little bit. Enjoy. So this would be familiar to a lot of people. It's considered a holy place for most religions. I'm not getting down into that, but it's known as the Temple Mount. But it goes by another name, Dome on the Rock. So you'll see a pattern in here, and it's not about a specific number, but the rock, the stone. Now, it is 740 metres above sea level, which is 704 is 11. Crazy. The famed octagon walls of the temple are 11 metres high. And the temple has 11 entrances, 10 for Muslims, 1 for tourists and Jews. That adds to, 11. And that Temple Mount, the rock, is covering the foundation stone, the stone. And near the Holy of Holies is the Wailing Wall. It has 11 letters and took 11 years to build. We're seeing a pattern, aren't we, with some of these holy relics. The Holy Sepulchre contains the stone of Uchten, the rock that Jesus' body was prepared for burial. Again, emphasizing on the rock, the stone. And in that building too, you also have the rock of Calvary, or the rock of Golgotha, the location, they say, of the crucifixion. Now, where Jesus got nailed to the cross is known as Station 11. What a weird number to pick. Other religions, like the Kaaba, which means the cube, is 11 meters high roughly and has been rebuilt 11 times. Again, why is it so sacred? Because according to tradition, this stone was given to Adam on his expulsion from paradise in order to obtain forgiveness of his sins, the black rock. Again, emphasizing on the rock, shows you how symbolic these rocks are. So you've only got to look in other religions. Here I've just took a generic image for Egypt, and I want to briefly talk about the Ben stone. Ben was the mound or the rock that arose through the primordial waters. Again, emphasizing on the stone, the rock. We find it everywhere. Even in the Latter-day Saints, they have the seer stones. And you also have the tale about where he found through an angel the golden plates, but also he got some spectacles that were known as the interpreters. So he used them to interpret the information from the angel from God. So you can just see the emphasis on stone and rock. And these are just a few that I've chose to include in this little intermission. It's crazy, isn't it? But when you start thinking about these stones and rocks, you go, oh yeah. And there's so many more that I'm going to be talking about. I'm just so excited about learning something new. And again, people were screaming, oh, showed you this ages ago, Paul. Sometimes it doesn't click, so it's no offence to anyone, and people do get offence. It's your problem. You shouldn't do. We all have our time and meaning of looking into these things. It says, notice Genesis 41:8. Davidson shows in his Hebrew lexicon that the consonantal word Peter signifies to interpret or interpretation. And I'm not reading out the pages. Bright points out that this term always related to the oracle interpretation. The pagan priests of the mystery religions were called Peters or Peters. They had the power to interpret the heathen mysteries. So if you think about it, when these people were priests, the head honchos and things, they're interpreting God's word into the rock. It's just, when you start thinking it a little different, and you think, well, why are we all this talking about rocks? And I'm going to talk about some of the rocks in regard to religion as also, but it sounded crazy when I was talking, we live in a cave on a rock. And all this stuff that, hey, you're the cornerstone of my world, and cornerstone. All of you too. That's why Masons are so prolific in hiding a lot of things. Masons, what do they work with? Wasn't Jesus supposed to be a mason, not a carpenter, if I remember right? So Brian points out that this term always related to the oracle interpretation. So I'll read it out again because I don't know what I was up to. I won't shut up. The pagan priests of the mystery religions were called Peters. They had the power to interpret the heathen mysteries. This is further brought out by Bunsen in the hieroglyph, page 540. I don't know what they're talking about, where he shows that the Egyptians, as the Bible also indicates, called their interpreters or priests Peter. That is Peter. The term Peter was one of the earliest names for pagan gods. It lasted as late as Greek and Roman times. But by that time, the term also took on a widespread secular meaning. It came generally to mean father or parent, paterfamilias, father, Peter. Janus is known as Ionos Peter, Janus father, Janus Peter. I showed you in old videos that they refer Peter as him. hence the Holy Door, and basically the Vatican. You're doing that the Holy Door every so many years. But this was not primarily mean at all. The word Peter, when used in religious addresses of the Greeks and Romans, meant not, as it's supposed, a father or parent, but related to a divine influence of a deity, called by the people of the East, Peter. So funny, I just remembered a comedy. I don't know if you guys know Gimme Gimme Gimme. In one of the scenes, it was hilarious that someone writes her a letter and she thinks his name's Peter. Is please turn over, and she was calling him, Peter. It was please turn over, which is similar spelling. In many ancient religions, the father was a chief priest of the family. This is the reason the head of the family became known as Peter, or father. So these things a lot of people have been talking about for a long time. Even I've been talking about it in videos about the paterfamilias and Peter and Peter and the connection to Janus. But this has just made me look at it completely different. The father, because of the priestly position, became known as Arch-Peter. Arch? Who's the god of arches? No, don't say it, Paul. Don't say it. Or it's commonly rendered patriarch. That blew me away, because you don't think of it, do you? Arch-Peter. And if you remember, in the Vatican, on the Holy Door, there is a cockerel on the arch. Obviously, in regard to Peter and the cock 3 times. But patriarch, you just don't look at it. Patriarch is Peter. Arch. It's mad. They're in charge. The patriarchs, archons, all the same. This is how the term Peter came to signify, in a secular sense, a father, but originally it was always meant interpreter, especially one of the mystery religions. So chief gods called Peters. We have a clear evidence showing that the ancient Romans called their chief god Peters, the divine interpreters. The early Roman writer Lucilius mentions Neptune, Liber, Saturn, Mars, Janus and Quirinus. Again, all Janus. All were Peters. See Lucilla fragments. He did not mean they were father gods. He meant that they were gods of the Peter rank. So again, this is talking about something I've not looked into. But isn't it brilliant when you look at someone else's information and aspects on what they show history is? It's just opened my eyes. Which is hard to do these days because I'm so tired all the time. Lucilius doesn't exhaust the list. In fact, he leaves out Jupiter. And otherwise, Jupiter was supposedly the father of Roman gods. But it was unnecessarily to mention him as a Peter god due to his high rank. The title Peter was actually incorporated as part of his name. He was called Jupiter. Gladstone, in his work on the antiquities of Greece, shows that Jupiter and the Greek god Zeus were one and the same. Again, who is also that, but that's in the other videos I've done. Was the Roman way of saying Zeus Peter, the chief god of the Greeks, Homer and the Homeric age. Peter was a name that came to signify high rank among the gods and among the priests. So, another little intermission for you guys. I just want to break it up slightly each time. Now look at the screen and you'll see BlackRock, the secret company that rules the world. This is just off the interwebs, and as a lot of you know, they are one of the top 2-3 organisation companies in the world that so-called rule it, and the name is BlackRock. What are we talking about today about rock? So this could be, in theory, the Black Peters or Peters. Funny that, isn't it? And also, in regard to BlackRock, something else I've talked about in an old video is obviously the Rupes Nigra, the magnetic stone, the centre of this realm, according to a lot of people. Again, is BlackRock, is the stone, the rock, emphasis on that. And to finish on a little bit of humour in this intermission is, tell me who one of the highest grossing movie stars is that they have chosen today. What's his name? Oh yeah, Dwayne Johnson, otherwise known as The Rock. Oh, that's just a coincidence. So you can see why it's intriguing me, and I had to show you. And obviously, Petra, as it is, signifies rock, stone. Hence why I'm talking about stone. The Romans were not the only ones who called their god Peters. The classical manual reveals that the Greeks used the term Peter or its variants as often as they did the Romans. For example, Apollo was called Patrius and his followers Apollo-Patrius. Pausanias tells us that Artemis and Bacchus were called Petora. That is a Peter god. Pindar speaks of Poseidon and Patrius. He says that the Thessalonians worshipped Neptune under the title. In Egypt, the Ammonian priests, who headed one of the chief pagan oracles of ancient Egypt, were called Petors. As Brian also says, the chief instrument, the idol in their hands, was styled Petorum. This idol on many occasions took the form of a pole or upright stake. The pagan god Artemis is often pictured standing by a stone pillar, which is called Petroa or Peter. These pillars, the 11s, and all the phallic symbols like them came to be known as Petras, the sacred Peters. And also, I showed you about that in other videos. It's still common among the vulgar to refer the male member by its original religious name, Peter. And I've heard that a long time ago, and I just when you know things and you don't know things, and it's it's a crazy world, isn't it, when we learn it? But you can see why this is intriguing me, and this, a lot of you out there will generally know it. I know I was having a laugh before, but some people will lie saying it is. We shouldn't be scared of saying I don't know it. You know what I mean? And to anyone out there who's sent me stuff like this before, I'm sorry though, I don't get around to these things a lot. I'm weird in the sense of I like to go when I feel it is. You know what I mean? So if I feel I need to look at something, I will look at it. And that's just how I've always learned. I'm stuck in my ways in that thing, but I believe I'm pushed. That's why I do what I do. These phallic Peter stones can be found all over the ancient world. In fact, there is not a mention of an ancient pagan oracle temple without some notice being given to a Peter emblem. The sacred stone, like the word Petor, which came to indicate simple a father or parent, the word Petra came to mean any large stone, but in the earliest times it conveyed only the original religious meanings. And obviously Petra, and you know about that city, and if I remember right, the Nabateans were the ones who lived there. But it's showing you how stone is sacred. And it's called Peter, obviously. It's just you can hear how excited I am. So the term Petra came at length to signify any rock or stone, and to be in a manner confined to that meaning. But in the first ages, it was always taken in a religious sense and related to the shrines of Osiris or the sun, Baal, and to other oracles which were supposed to be exhibited. In other words, the term Petra meant the sacred Peter stone, a stone usually phallic in design. So we're up to Petras or Peters in the pagan world. Notice some references to these sacred Petras found throughout the pagan world. At the temple of Delphi in Greece, the chief object in the ritual was the Petra. At the Acropolis in Athens, Euripides tells us the niches, or the niches, or how you want to pronounce it, which held the idols were called Petra, or Petrae. It is well known that even the sacred book, which was used in the celebration of the Eleusinian mysteries, was entitled Book Petroma. Peter's book. Petroma. I mean, remember guys, so when you're looking at old, and I'm going to put them on screen now, what are these that you see all around the world? You see them everywhere. Ancients putting images onto stones. Oh yes, they're called petroglyphs. It is showing you, yes, and that could be termed for stone, but he's showing you they're writing what they deem as gods or holy onto these things. Petroglyphs. So remember that the pagan temples were also called Peters. The temple at Elis in Greece was called Patron. It's like that thing here, Patreon. Pythia at Delphi was called Petriasa. The oracle temple dedicated to Apollo in Asia Minor was called the Patara, and the oracle that was called Paterius, EUS, means person who won. Also Patra, an ancient town where Diana had a temple, and the oracle in Achaea was called Patra. Proper names in the Old Testament page, and it just gives examples. Examples are too numerous to mention, but this should be enough to show the name Peter or its variants figured very high in every phase of pagan worship. These Peter stones and temples were found all over the ancient world. There is in history of every oracular temple some legend about the stone, some reference to the word Petra. So you can see how significant it is. So to keep this intermission short-ish, I want to read out a few Bible verses that talk about rock, just to show you where and what we're talking about. So Genesis 12:8, ignore it adds up to 11, that's just a coincidence. And he removed from thence unto a mountain on the east of Bethel, and pitched his tent, having Bethel on the west and Hai on the east. And there he built an altar unto the Lord, and called upon the name of the Lord. That's showing you that you used to build altars on mountains. What's a mountain? A big rock. So let's go to these verses, and I'll read a few out, just to show you guys. The Lord is my rock. I wonder why they say that. Could it be a metaphor, or they're talking about the rock? The Lord is my Peter, and my fortress, and my deliverer, my God, my rock, in whom I take refuge, my shield, and the horn of my salvation, my stronghold. Of David, blessed be the Lord, my rock, who trains my hand for war, and my fingers for battle. And I tell you, you are Peter, you are the rock, and on this rock I will build my church, and the gates of hell should not prevail against it. There is none holy like the Lord, for there is none beside you. There is no rock like our God. There's no Peter like our God. Hence why Petra and Peter are always used, and this is why I'm reading all this stuff out, because it's expanding my mind. Some might not think the information is good. I do, but I treat everything as information. That's why I don't get triggered. For who is God but the Lord, and who is rock except our God? Everyone then who hears these words of mine and does them all will be like a wise man who built his house on a rock. And the rain fell, and the floods came, and the winds blew and beat on that house. But did it not fall, because it had been founded on the rock? And everyone who hears these words of mine and does not do them will be like a foolish man who built his hand on sand. And the rain fell, and the floods came, and the winds blew and beat against those house, and it fell, and the great was the fall of it. You were unmindful of the rock that bore you, and you forgot the God who gave you birth. He alone is my rock, my salvation, my fortress. I shall not be greatly shaken. And the ones on the rock are those who, when they hear the word, receive it with joy. But those have no root. That's an etymology of words too. They believe for a while, and in time of testing fall away. So I'll read a few more out, because obviously I don't want to go too much in the intermission. Listen to me, you pursue righteousness. You who seek the Lord, look to the rock from which you were hewn, and to the quarry from which you were dug. The rock, his work is perfect, for all his ways are justice, and a God of faithfulness, and without iniquity, just and upright he is. Oh, come, let us sing to the Lord. Let us make a joyful noise to the rock of our salvation. He is my rock and my salvation, my fortress. Again, I will not be shaken. Again, other references. and all drank the same spiritual drink, for they drank from the spiritual rock that followed them, and the rock was Christ. What can I say, guys? When you start looking at it in this way, rock and Peters and different things, it's just blowing my mind. Peter worship can be traced directly back to Mesopotamia. It was there that idolatry, I can't pronounce that one, had its beginning. This is where the Tower of Babel was erected. It is no wonder that in Mesopotamia we find the first mention of the Peter Temple. In Numbers 23, 22, 4-5, we read that the false prophet Balaam was called to prophecy against Israel. Further in Deuteronomy, we read that the Balaam had been called from Pethor of Mesopotamia. That is from the Peter of Mesopotamia. The Pethor or Peter, either spelling is correct, was the place of an oracle temple. In the dictionary, Proper Names of the Old Testament, edited by A. Jones, we find that Balaam's Pethor, which one of the gods is known as Thor, was the sacred high place where there was an oracular temple, and hence Pethor and Pethora, which meant place of interpretation or oracular temple. God's give me some words here. Here was no doubt a college of priests, of whom Balaam had been appointed chief Petora. Yes, Balaam was the chief Petora, Peter, of the Pethor, Peter Temple of Mesopotamia. It was customary for each pagan country to have a chief oracle or temple. The Pethor or Peter in Greece was Delphi. In Egypt it was Ammon. In Asia Minor it was Lycia, and later Pergamos. Professor Jones tells us about the other Pethors throughout the world. Notice these high places were scattered about in many parts. There was a city of interpretation in Achaia called Petrea, and another in Lycia called Patara, where Apollo had her oracle. Pethor was in aftertime celebrated for the worship of Eliat. So we got Balaam, chief Peter, but Balaam came from Pethor of the Euphrates, the oracle of Mesopotamia. He was no less than the chief Petora of the very home of idolatry. Pardon, I'm just getting that wrong, and false religion. The very meaning of the name Balaam shows he considered himself as sitting in the very chair of Nimrod, the beginner of the mystery religions. The name Balaam means in Semitic tongue, conqueror of the people. This was the exact proper name that the Greeks used to designate Nimrod. They called him Nikolaos, which also meant conqueror of the people. In the New Testament, we read of people following the doctrines of Nikolaos, Nimrod. They were called Nicolaitans. McClintock and Strong's Encyclopedia, speaking of them, says the sect of the Nicolaitans is described as following the doctrine of teaching of Balaam, and it appears not improbable that the name is simply symbolic, as Nikolaos is equivalent in meaning to Balaam. And some people will go, no, how wrong? Again, what am I saying about giving the people a different opinion some respect? That's all it is, a different opinion on what they see. And we should do it enough. There's not enough people that do it. Yes, the two names, Nikolaos and Balaam, are exactly the same in meaning. They both point to Nimrod, the originator of paganism. We also find that when Simon Magus, alias Simon Peter, Christianized the religion of Nimrod, John the Apostle plainly labels his followers Nicolaitans and followers of Balaam. All of the heresies mentioned in the seven churches are of only one system, the system of Nimrod under the leadership of Simon Magus. Balaam represents Nimrod. The name of Balaam is another name for Nimrod, but understand this clearly. The Balaam who met Israel on the way out of Egypt was not the original Nimrod. He had been killed several hundred years before. This Balaam merely represented Nimrod as a successor. We are all aware that Joshua, being a successor of Moses, who looked on as sitting in Moses' seat. Even in Christ's time, the scribes and the Pharisees sat in Moses' seat of authority. So it was with Balaam. He maintained one of the proper names of Nimrod to signify that he was the legitimate successor of the arch rebel. And to emphasize his authority, Balaam could point to his headquarters as the Peter or Peter of Mesopotamia. Therefore, the Moabites, in their hatred for Israel, called for the chief priest of the pagan world. They ignored the priesthood of their own national gods, going to the highest authority they knew. Josephus, represented his false prophet as Balaam, who lived by the Euphrates and was the greatest of the prophets at the time. Balaam was the successor of Nimrod, the Pontifex Maximus of the pagan world, and I've showed you in all videos that is also a title Janus went by. His headquarters was the Peter of the Euphrates, the St. Peter's of Mesopotamia, chief oracle of paganism. This is a shocking revelation, but one which stands the test of the Bible and ancient religious history. Peter gods come to Rome. It is well known that in the earliest ages the sense of civilization was in Asia and Mesopotamia. In later times, political power passed to the Greeks and then to the Romans. It was also well recognised that the religions of Asia by Greek and Roman times had also passed to the West. By the 1st century, the mystery religions of the Babylonians were centred primarily in Rome. By that time, Rome had become the chief city of the world. Early records mention this transference of pagan religion from Asia to the city of Rome. The 1st century book by Virgil, the Aeneid, in imperial times became a type of Roman Bible. It gives the story of one of the Aeneans who wandered away from Asia right after the Trojan War and settled in Italy. The main theme of the book concerns the so-called sacred task of Aeneas, bringing the pagan gods of Asia to Italy. Virgil spurs no words in glorify Aeneas' journey. He shows how Aeneas brought the Romans organised religion with all the pagan gods and goddesses necessary for performing it. And most important, Virgil constantly says that these deities were the patri, but look at how it's written, P-A-T-R, and it looks like 11, even though it's an I. But come on. P-A-T-R 11 of Asia. Oh my god, it's so funny. These gods and goddesses were the Peter deities. The chief deities were also destined to favour Rome and Italy above all other countries. Asia has been the original home of the Peter gods. Through Virgil we find them being transported to the doorstep of Rome, and why not? By the 1st century Rome was considered the home of the gods. Prudentius, an ancient Roman himself, says that there wasn't a single pagan deity that did not in the end find its headquarters at Rome. Notice what he says: there came to be one single home for all earth-born gods, and you may count as many temples of gods at Rome as tombs of heroes in the world. It could hardly be clearer. By imperial times, Rome became the headquarters of the pagan religion. It was the chief oracle of the word, the Peter of the earth. Still is today. Peter on the rock. I built it on Peter, the Vatican. It says it, it's crazy, isn't it? I built the religion, the Vatican, on Peter. Or Peter. It's crazy when you just see something you've not really looked into. The chief gods of Rome. Right guys, another black sheep intermission. I've done this to break it up. Hopefully you don't forget the main point of the video, but also I think these help. These little chunks, just a little bit more information on this topic, and I'm excited by this. So I want to get into this now quickly, but before that I want to give a big shout out to Jetsaman for giving us a shout out. I'm talking about Janus this week. Also another friend of the channel, JSOL Explores, who has done another video this week and mentioning Janus. So these guys, thank you for looking into that topic and giving us a shout out. So on with this. So as you can see on the screen, it is the compass and set and with the G inside. Now I've always talked about Freemasonry, and if you look at this in Gematria, 307, so 3 add 7 equals 10. So remember that just for a split second. But I've always talked about the G representing Geo or geology, or the earth, basically, because I believe we could be in a chamber, and I think this shows you a chamber. You know, the G's inside. So onwards. So it got me thinking, and I'm talking about obviously the letter G, and obviously these are Freemasons. Freemasons work with, yes, you got it, stone. Some speculate that Jesus was a stone mason, and this is what's got me intrigued. So I wanted to quickly look into the etymology of the letter G, and as you can see, it first started off what looks like a number 1. So it went from that to a letter G. Now remember, what was Freemason in Gematria? 307. 3 add 7 equals 10. But take away the 0, it is 1. G was 1. Obviously, I've talked about 11 and the 2 pillars and whatnot. I found that. Whoa, that's intriguing. So, geo is the Greek word for earth. So, the earth inside, as I'm talking about. Geology is the study of the earth. And a branch of that is petrology. And that's a branch of geology. And petrology, or the Peters, is a branch of geology dealing with the origin, the occurrence, the structure and history of rocks, especially igneous and metamorphic rock. So that's intriguing, isn't it? The study of rocks, obviously, because rock is Petra, but it gets you thinking Petra, Peter, and all these ties and links. It's just a mind blower. So just for a little bit of fun, I thought, you know what, I just showed you the Freemason was added to 10, 307, but I'm talking about obviously 11 in this video in a little bit. So Peter, what I've talked about, 7 and 4 equals, yeah, you got it, 11. Rock, rock, what we're talking about is 47. 4 add 7 equals, you got it, another 11. And just because we mentioned Jesus before as being a stonemason, Jesus in Gematria adds to 11. Intriguing, isn't it, when we just look at things a little bit different? And as you look at this compass and set with the G inside, if you've all seen memes and people talking about it, I've mentioned it many times in old videos. The top half adds to, the degree of it is 47 of the compass. 4 add 7 equals, yes, you got it, 11. And obviously at the bottom, the set, the ruler is 90 degrees. Now, a few smart people out there, I don't include myself on this. 90 add 47, so adding them both together, those angles, gives you 137. Few smart people out there. 1 add 3 add 7 equals, you got it, 11. This 11 that I've been keep showing you through the video, and I've researched quite a lot. It's inspiring and it just excites me. So I mean, even JSOL was talking about this in a week and I was like, no way. This is in my video. So these people, hats off to you guys. You're doing, you know, good work. We're all doing good work, and I just hope it inspires other people like these two guys have inspired me. So on with the video. There were 2 gods of ancient Rome which were preeminently worshipped as Peter gods. One was Jupiter, Zeus Peter. The other, says the classical manual, was Janus. So you can just see this person hasn't researched Janus like me, but still has him as one of the Peter gods. So you know, you can see why I said at the beginning, not necessarily what I believe, but it was too good not to read out to you guys, and I'll put the link in the description. The other says the classical Peter, called Peter or Petar. Sometimes these 2 gods are confused, but they are to be reckoned as distinct. Relative to Roman paganism of the 1st century, the latter god, Janus Peter, had some interesting roles to play in pagan religion of Rome. These roles answered the question, who was the original Peter of Rome? Notice a brief history and some of the activities of this god. Plutarch, in his life of Numa, gives us the identity of Janus. Originally, according to Plutarch, Janus was an ancient prince who reigned in the infancy of the world. He brought men from a rude and savage life to a mild and rational system. I've showed you this before, what I was basically talking about before, about law and everything like that. He was the first to build cities and to be first establish government over men. So you can see what I'm saying when people are talking about, Tartarian, star thoughts, people are talking about maritime law and all this. Why are they not mentioning Janus? You know, it's like me not looking into things that you tell me. We all do it. You know, I'm not like criticising anyone, but it would make because people are a lot smarter than me who are talking about these things. And if they put that Janus spin on, people then would look into these Janus Peters more. And after his death, he was deified. There can be no mistaking who this Janus was. The title was just another of many names of Nimrod. And I've showed you that in other videos. This ancient prince, who was violently killed, was later deified by the pagan religions. Because of his high authority, he was called Peter or Peter. Here are some of the religious activities of which Janus Peter was in charge. It was Janus Peter who was preeminent in interpreting the times. Again, interpreting. Peter. Here comes Peter to interpret what God says, especially prophecy. You know, that's another name that the so-called Vatican is supposed to be about, prophecy, isn't it? And think about it, where was Janus or Peter so-called crucified? Upside down on Janicular Hill, as I've showed you. The past and the future was always present in his mind. He was pictured as being double-faced. Plutarch said this was a symbol of his endeavour to change men from barbarism to civilization, the golden age. People talk about Tartaria as the golden age of man. That's why I did that video, Janus, in regard to Tartaria. He's got 250,000 views, and that was years old. That is, bring them to civilization of Nimrod. One of Janus's roles after his deification as a god was the continuation of his sacred task of civilizing men. But let's go a little further. Janus Peter had keys. The Peter god Janus was to the ancient Romans the keeper of the gates of the heaven and earth. He represented with a key in one hand and emblematic of his presiding over gates and highways. Who is a head honcho? Bill Gates. And I keep telling people, just look into this. I just get excited when I research this because it holds the keys like a janitor. And you know, it's like the skeleton key. How shocking the pagan Romans were called the Janus of Peter hundreds of years before the birth of the Apostle Peter. It was this Janus who was in charge of the pearly gates. The very word Janus means gates, that is, the one in charge of the gates. The classical manual continues. Ovid speaks of him, Janus, in the first book of this Fasti. His face is doubled to denote his equal empire over the heavens and the earth. Does not the Pope claim the same power today? And the Pope in the 11th century changed his title to, you got it, Father Peter. And that all brings open and shut to him as his will. He was infallible and answers to no one for his actions, so the Pope. That he governs the universe, the Catholicum, and alone possesses the power of making the word revolve on its axis. That presides over the gates of heaven. And I always... why do we not think of these things? Now people talk about the axis, but slow down and look at it. And again, I'm not meaning this to be fact or anything, guys, if everyone's taking it that way. Axis, AX is. You know, AX is, and obviously I'm talking about the X being the 11 also. I know it's 10, but you know, it represents the doorways crossed. That he presides over the gates of heaven. Catholics claim keys. The Catholic Church aims Peter gave to it the keys of the gates of heaven, and that no one will enter into God's presence unless the church opens the gates. The very word cardinal means hinge, and that's Cardia also, the god who is goddess of the hinge. Cardinals also. The cardinals of the Roman Church are hinges upon which the gate, the Pope, is also to turn. Hence why they I've showed you that connection before. The classical manual continues. The successions of a day and night are regulated by his influence, and that the east and the west is at one moment open to his view. It was Janus Peter who also controlled the calendar by his priests. The first month of the year was named after him to show his control over the years. And also he holds 365 in one hand. But remember, back in the day, they took 11 days out of the calendar. 11, you say? Don't say anything, Paul. So today we still have January, the first month. The Catholic Church, like the priests of Janus, feels it has the same authority over the calendar today. Another name for Nimrod, and in one of my old videos I showed you that Cush and Nimrod were also called Janus. Finally, it is necessary to notice at least one more name under which Nimrod masqueraded, the name Mithras. The Persian name for Baal, the sun god. The Mithras worship of Nimrod was popular and was one of the last to plant itself in Rome, but it had a very old theme, outright Peter worship. Mithras was styled by the nations of the East Petor. His temples were Patra and Petra, and the festivals Patrica or Patricia. Yes, even Nimrod, under the name Mithras, the sun god, was called Peter. So James Fraser tells us of this religion of Mithra, the religion of the pagan Peter, coming to Rome. Notice it among the gods of the Eastern origin, who in decline in the ancient world competed against each other for the allegiance of the West, was the old Persian deity of Mithra. The immense popularity of his worship is attested by the monuments illustrated of it. It's funny that someone was just talking about Mithra in comments the other day and I couldn't say anything because I was putting into this video a little bit about on this aspect of Mithras, which has been found scattered in profusion all over the Roman Empire. In respect both for doctrines and the rites of the cult of Mithra, appear to have presented many points of resemblance, not only to the religion and mother of the gods, but also to Christianity, the golden bough. And I've put that in another old video. Catholics accept Peter worship. What he means is that the Christianity of the 3rd and the 4th centuries had already by this time inherited so much from pagan beliefs that this Peter religion, coming from the east, found many similarities with Roman Christianity. And remember, Christians, another name for Janus is Ian, so Christ, Ian, Christianity. The Catholics had already by this late date accepted the pagan festivals of Christmas, Easter, and a host of other rituals and beliefs. Fraser continues, taken all together, the coincidences of the Christian with the heathen festivals are too close and too numerous to be accidental. It was this pagan Mithraism which gave the most to Christianity. Bryant shows that the chief name of Mithra in the east was Petor or Peter. His temples were Patra and Petra, and his festivals Patrica or Patricia. Everything connected with this ancient pagan religion can be traced back to the original Peter, the original interpreter of the mysteries, who was none other than Nimrod. This is the same mysteries system which the Roman Catholics have absorbed. Sits in Peter's chair. No wonder the Roman Catholic claims to sit in Peter's chair, and that the chief temple of the world is today called St. Peter's. That church accepted the practices and symbols of the oldest pagan religion on earth, Peter worship, the religion of Nimrod. This pagan religion was believed and practiced before Christ ever told the apostle Peter and the other apostles that they were to have the key to the kingdom of heaven. Satan counterfeited God's true religion centuries before Christ came. This was Satan's attempt to smother God's true religion with a counterfeit that to the untrained eye looks genuine. He did this principally through Simon Magus, Peter, who amalgamated all the pagan religions into one universal religion called the system Christianity. The Bible tells us to completely out the false religion system masquerading under the name of Christianity. We are to get back to the faith once delivered to the saints. We can thank God for his goodness in giving his church to the truth. So you can see why this excited me because these don't know about Janus like I do, and he still had him significantly way up there. And just look at some of the words in regard to Peter and Peter. It's mind blowing. So we'll put this link in the description. I've not finished because I've got to read some other things out. But when we start talking about this rock and we live on the rock, that is why it's so significant. Because we could be in a cave in a rock. It's just mind blowing. And hopefully I didn't bore you to death and you're still awake. Here's another rock. It's known as the Stone of Scone or the Stone of Destiny. The royals need this. They have to sit on it. It's used for coronating kings and queens. So I want to use the copyright 1976 and show you a clip coming up. Crazy, eh? A ritual for a stone. So even monarchs have to sit on a rock to be coronated king or queen. Shows you the importance of the Peters, the rock. The rock, the Petra, the Peter is the foundation, the power. Right guys, so what I'm going to do now is I want to show you an old clip because I've talked about a stone many years ago and I forgot about it. So I was making this video and I'm like, I swear I've done something about a stone. And what's intriguing me is now I'm talking about the Peters and these stones, and I've just done the Stone of Scone. There is a stone, it's so revered, it's called the London Stone, and it's kept in the London Museum. I want to show you a quick clip from the old video that I made on it and see what you think.
London Stone, it is the dead centre, the throbbing heart, which everything around London revolves.
Before the stone was moved here, from opposite Cannon Street Station, people just walked past it. Most of them wouldn't even notice it was there.
The stone has been in a variety of locations, so this is not its first move. Its last move was briefly to the Guildhall Museum before 111 Cannon Street was built. Before that, it was lodged in an alcove in St Swithin's Church. Before the 1770s, it was actually a much bigger entity, sitting dead centre in the middle of Cannon Street, outside what is now Cannon Street railway station.
It's first mentioned in medieval records in about the year 1100, but it's already called London Stone. It's a landmark.
The stone's appearance has changed over the years. It has weathered. The blacking on the front of it are the coal fires of the past.
What we have now is the top 1.5 foot of what must have been at one time a quite impressive monument. It's a lump of stone with a myth attached. And in some ways, the myth is more important than the piece of stone. There is an old rhyme, so long as the stone of Brutus shall stand, so long shall London flourish. It isn't an ancient rhyme, it was actually invented by an eccentric Welsh clergyman in about 1862. But it seems to have caught on, and ever since then people have believed there actually was a medieval myth. There wasn't a medieval myth, it was a 19th century myth.
Shakespeare knew about the stone because he talks about it in Henry VI Part 2 when the Kentish rebel Jack Cade sits astride the stone and claims London.
At the time of the Great Fire, the stone stood in the middle of Cannon Street. It's actually right in the heart of the burnt area.
Presumably it survives because of its lack of proximity to burning buildings.
It's always been a marker, it's always been an indicator for trade. London Stone is documented as having been a place where the master spectacle maker could smash spectacles of dubious quality, and we have a record of that.
It has to be kept safe because it's a scheduled ancient monument, and you don't get safer than a museum.
It's weathered the storm like London itself has. It came through the Great Fire, it came through the Blitz. It survived redevelopment, so it's a survivor, and one hopes to think that London is as well.
London Stone will be returning to Cannon Street. It will be installed in the new version of the building at 111 Cannon Street, and it'll have a position which is more prominent, so visitors to London, city workers, people walking past will go, that's part of me, that's the heart of London.
So in the old video that I was just showing you then about the London Stone, I want to show you its location. And all these things I'm going to show you just must be a pure coincidence. You know those coincidences. So it's situated here in the city of London. There's the Thames. Now for some of you who are not aware, the Thames oldest name, one of the oldest names, was Isis. So it was known as the River Isis. So it's the city of London, as you can see there. And it's in a pyramid. It's in the Ben stone, the capstone. So this triangle is where the London Stone is situated at 111 Cannon Street, right there at its base. right there. And next to it is the Mithras Museum. Then you've got the Lord Mayor's house, and at the top of this pyramid, like a burning eye, is the Bank of England. That's just a pure coincidence. So it was just kept in an ordinary tower place for many years. Why would you? It's significant. It's like a foundation stone of this pyramid, in this quadrant, in this pyramid. It's just crazy, guys, and it just wowed me when I found this many years ago, and I wasn't talking about the 11th then, and now seeing it, oh, it's 111 and it was first mentioned in the 11th century. It was crazy. So that is where the thingy is there now, 111 Cannon Street. That's what it roughly is. Mithras next door, the temple. Was it a part of the Mithras Museum? I just don't know. Is it linked to Brutus? No one really knows what this stone is, but it's revered and its power is there for you to see in the video. So that's crazy, isn't it? Right, guys, I'm going to end on this because I've been there over a good hour now, and I'm going to revisit this topic and carry on making content on it because I'm fascinated by it. I've made a lot of videos over the years on stone and rock and just not twigged to myself like the reverence of the stone. So I want to finish on this one, and what you're seeing on the screen now is Jacob's pillar, obviously made of stone. I'm going to be reading something out on it near the end, but I just want to show you the contradictory nature of stone and brick and the Bible and different things. But from where I am, you know, accents, we all have different accents, and when we're talking about this to myself and Jacob's pillow, well, we call pillows pillars. So on the screen, Jacob's pillow, and he set it up then to be revered, became a pillar. And it's just ironic that we call pillows pillars. I don't know why. It must be the accent and the area where we come from. We just call them. We don't go, oh, can you pass me the pillow? We go, pillar. Pass me the pillar. And many of you may use that term as well in England, but I just thought it funny, like it's a stone pillar or stone pillow, and it became a pillar. Now, the reason I want to show this bit is because I want to show you the slight contradictory nature of this. Now, this is Leviticus 26, 1, 2, which is, read it, 2 and 6 is 8, add 1 is 9, add 2 is, you got it, 11. So, do not make idols or set up carved images or sacred pillars or sculptured stones in your land, so you may worship them. I am the Lord your God. You must keep my Sabbath days of rest and show reverence for my sanctuary. I am the Lord. So again, it's another 11. And in this, they're saying, do not carve anything. Do not have anything stoned, carved, or sculptured, and have it as a sacred pillar. And as we've seen, to the different nature of the contradictory nature of Christianity in paganism, as you can see, which then got brought into religion, as we all know, is the sacredness of stone. This is what we're all talking about, the interpreters and different things like this, and the Peters and the rocks and the church being built on the rock. So you can just see how the contradictory nature of this makes me, smile. So we're then going to this, and pardon my pronunciation. So it's Betelius, whatever it is. It's in Greek religion, is a sacred stone or pillar. So pillar. The word Betelius is of Semitic origin. It comes from Bethel. Now, as you guys know, and what I'm going to read out in a minute after this, where Jacob lay his head, he named it, you got it, Bethel. So we've got two civilizations now. We're talking something revere and holy from stone and called it Bethel, and I'll get into what that means. So the word that what I can't pronounce is of Semitic origin, meaning Bethel. Numerous holy or fetish stones existed in antiquity, generally attached to the cult. I've taught there's a lot of stone cults in this time, attached to the cult of some particular god and looked upon at his abiding place or symbol. The most famous example is the holy stone at Delphi, the Omphalos, the navel that reposed in the temple of Apollo. They are supposedly marked the exact centre of the universe. A sacred stone at Delphi was said to have been the one that the Titan Kronos swallowed. It was thought to be Zeus himself at the time, symbolic of a Betelic form. So as you know, Kronos swallowed all these kids, and obviously they faked Zeus is one. But what ironic is, as I've showed you in many videos, and it's not my saying, Kronos and Zeus are another epithet of Janus, who is also a Peter. So these people are the Peters. Sometimes the stones were made into more regular shapes by forming them into pillars or into groups of 3 pillars. So again, we're talking about the idols do not make pillars. Hence, these people are telling you regular shape by forming them into pillars, into groups of 3 pillars. Again, the L. Evans. Such columns were sometimes placed before a shrine, like I was talking about before, were used as mileposts and often shaped into human form. The Betelus or Bethels became the parent form of altars and iconic statuary. So they're telling you that they became altars. You go into a church, the altars are made of, you got it, stone. And it's still there today, ironic nature. So what I'm going to read out now is, quickly, because I could have gone this all day, but again, I've been here a while. Genesis 28:18. Then Jacob arose early in the morning and took the stone that he had put at his head, set it up for as a pillar. So he's telling you it's not a pillow, it's a pillar. So he then set that pillow up as a pillar. Is that why we say pillar? And we put our heads down on a pillar each night and poured oil on top of it where the stone was set up. And he called the name of that place Bethel, which means God's house. last bit I read out talks about the holy nature of the Bethel stones, meaning God's house. The rock, the stone, is God's house. Nowhere in scripture has an inanimate object, a rock or a stone, been given a divine declared purpose, as was bestowed on Jacob's pillow stone. Jacob's anointed the stone with oil, and he named the place Bethel, or God's house. And we've just read out again from the Greek word of Bethel, what I can't pronounce. So it's intriguing, isn't it, about stones? And there's one guy who was reading out, and I'm going to look into this much detail, is that, pardon me, my phone's going off there, that we have the stone of destiny being this pillar stone. And when we look into, we go really right back, and I've talked about this many years ago, right? People used to be birthed on holy birthing bricks. And I'm just going to show you a picture now, so you got it. So in my old video talking about, are we just another brick in the wall? People used to be birthed on magical holy bricks. So you can see the irony that I'm talking about this, when people have been born on bricks. And then we have talk of blood in bricks further on in cultures and civilizations. So it's really intriguing, this topic, when you just think, oh, it's just a stone. Again, that was like the video when they did on crystals. Oh, it's just a stone. But this is much more. So now I'm going to go into my thoughts, guys.
Yeah, they call me the black sheep. You know they call me the black sheep.
Hello and welcome. We're here again. It's took a while, but I've been busy and a lot of things going on in life general, just like you guys. So hopefully you're still here through all that. I've not put you catatonic and you're in sleep, but if you are, sleep tight, as they say. So let's get the housekeeping out of the way. I want to thank everyone who's like, share and subscribe. It really does give me energy seeing you guys doing what you're doing. So please just keep that up. Keep telling people to check out the channel. More and more people are lately, thank God. And it's all down to you. So I want to give you a big thank you from my heart. It means a lot. People always ask how they can help the channel. By helping the channel, you're helping me. So the only ways that you can help the channel is liking, sharing and subscribing. Also, if you want to go a little bit further, you can buy me a coffee or buy me a bar. The QR code is here and the link will be in the description if you want to do that. So on to the video. On to the video. So hopefully that made sense. It did to me, but you know, half the time I'm tired, so everything sometimes makes sense when you're daydreaming and lack of sleep. So the reason I made the video is because I came across that piece of information when I was researching, just like I normally do, to keeping up to date with my Janus research. I came across that website. Now, a lot of people will be screaming at the screen, no, all wrong. And you'd be right. But why are you not screaming at the screen, you're all right too? Because it's like life, it's an opinion. It's how you see this reality, how you interpret. You see what we're saying? You interpret the information. You are being a Peter. You are using that force to interpret how you see this reality. Think about it. Interpret, inter. Inter means you're burying. Burying like in a grave or a chamber. Burial chamber. Isn't that the spell etymology of, you got it, celestial? And how I started to look more at this cave. That's just a coincidence. So the buried Peters is how you interpret all the information. Now it's intriguing, and this could be wrong, but I'm just using the resources available. When it talks about interpreters using the information orally, talking back to you, or using basically oral, whereas translators read and then translate that. So it's intriguing, that, isn't it? So they're interpreters. So it's the buried Peters. So are they talking about the burial of a god? And this is what intrigued me about this, and about talking about rocks and the Petros and the Petra and the Petors, because it's all different variations of Peter. And for a long time I've showed you one of Janus's names was Ianos Peter, father, pater familias, father. So these gods were known as father. You call your father, they called the priest. So whether this information is right or wrong, and it inspired me. What is wrong with that? And like the analogy that I used, it was so funny because I was thinking, I've talked about it to myself and family for a long time, an analogy of what I used at the beginning. I'm like, I'll put that in the video because it sounds really, really smart, and whoa, it's to the point. So then when I just quickly researched it before, it's actually come from a fact. So I use the analogy at the beginning of the truth or information, because I treat everything as information. Because when we get triggered, we then blind, and there's no such word as truth. Truth is faith. So what I'm saying is that's why people get triggered in the truth community. When you challenge what they perceive as truth, faith is strong, and that's why people get triggered. That's how people attack you, troll you, because you're attacking their faith. It's why we've been in so many wars in regard to religion, fighting in the name of the Lord, fighting in God's name, fighting in the Peters, the rocks. It's just crazy. So when we look at it like that, and the information was on the ground floor, the first time you come in contact with a piece of information, the original piece of information. Now, again, do we know where, some people then smart asses, like sometimes I am, it'll be, oh, well, you have a basement, but we're going from here, the ground floor, the rock, not buried beneath it, which would then be in the chamber. So that's the original source of information. And then the first floor, we call them floors over here, but in America you call them stories. And what it was that in ancient times, medieval times, medieval times, or before, it is a long time ago, they used to paint windows on buildings, and then that correlated to stained glass, and then to the reality of having a window. And stories, STOREY, for your height, is from stories, because you see life different. So I'm on the ground floor. If I spent all my life on the ground floor, you would see life from that perspective all the time. If you stayed on floor 1, or story, first story, second story, and so on, your life, your perspective of this world, this reality, is different to how I see it. Now, this is how the community works. People are seeing it from their story. And it's a story. It's a written story. People talk about, oh, history is a lie. It's not. It's just a different story. Storybooks. Stories can be fiction. Stories can be propaganda, and so on and so on. You can see where I'm coming from. So thank you. Someone popping the horn. So you can see how intriguing that is. And I was like, oh, there's a nice mark coming up with this, and I've never saw this before. So it just shows you how we're all connected. And I'm like, oh, I'm gonna talk about this because I haven't talked about it before in reference to how we look at this reality. So the windows became stories, because when you look out the window, you're seeing the world moving and going differently. Higher you go, different. Higher you go, different. And that's why the interpreters are going between each floors and constantly changing the stories, because they're interpreting it differently. You know what I mean? It's really deep, but it's true. How you see this world depends on where you see it from, what floor. And if you stick to air floor, That's just how you're going to see the world for the rest of your life. And that's why I prefer to go up and down the lift and stick my head out the window and look. You know what I mean? It's like windows, and the souls. The eyes are the windows to the soul. Again, how you see this reality. I've talked about eyes and that connection with cave too. The etymology comes from cave. Mind-blowing, isn't it? When you start looking at it like that. And I was talking to Ryder from Race from Giants. I'll put his little image up here if I remember. If I don't, sorry. But I'll give him a shout out. And I'm always talking about what I'm doing next and what I'm thinking. And we was talking together about this, and he raised a good point. And he said, "Oh, you should have put in a video," but I didn't want to take away from the video, so this is why I'm doing it in thoughts. And he was talking about how we see this reality. You're looking through the window. But, and this was, I love the point, he then invented glass in the window. Wouldn't the window glass distort how you see this reality from the refraction and everything? What did he call the windows? But pane. So that pain, just like that pain. So putting a window in and restricting your story is a pain. So that was a good point raised by Ryder. So I'll give him a kudos for that, and a shout out. So that was an analogy, and I'm like, yay, I'm gonna use that. And then I found it to be true, and that's from where that comes from. And I have to say, people, why do you have to say these things? Because I've made that many videos, and some of the videos are years old, and I do use old video clips in videos because I don't want to just say, "Hey guys, did you remember that video?" And people are like, I don't even remember that video. So when I put in an old clip, sometimes I am talking about points, or sometimes I am moaning. I try not to moan now, because where does it get you? Only festers, doesn't it, when you're moaning about a particular topic or how you're treated, and it is off-putting to people. So that is why I try and look a little different. But that's why sometimes when you're in a video, you can hear me saying something about something, but these videos could be 2-4 years old or something, and at that time things affected me more. I'm an emotional person. I love you guys, you know what I mean? But like anything, sometimes some of you guys do my head in, the way you comment. But that's life, and I will do people's head in too. We can't always be perfect, but I try and be humble. I try and be who I am, and I try to be nice to everyone. So that analogy, I was like, yeah, I'm going to put that in the video. Oh, it's already invented, it's already been made. But that is how we see this reality. So when I use information, that is just him or her looking out the window, and that is what they see. And that inspired me. Just like other videos that I've talked about in the video, Jetsman and JSOL and other people. And sometimes we only, I'm only going to go on that channel because they've got a huge following and huge views. Sometimes good channels are just good channels, whether they've got big subs or low subs. And if the heart's there and they show me love, which made me humble and emotional. You know what I mean? So we have to help each other. So this is what I got talking about the Peters and the interpreters. Inter, like I was saying, means to bury a corpse. So what they're burying? Information. The rock is getting buried. Because when you look at it like that, I'm just using an analogy that all Peters are rocks. But that's why I was just funny and putting in the black rock, because obviously people say they run this world, and it's funny that they call black rock or rupes nigra, which, like the video, added to 11. And I'm like, that's why I put the 11s in, just for a black sheep intermission, burying the mission. So isn't it just inspiring? So like buildings, and if I put an obelisk outside my house, or your town has an obelisk, people say phallic worship, paganism. It's a Peter, it's a temple, it's a worship pin, it's a pillar pillow. Pillar. It's a pillar. A pillow to Peter. It is an altar. Just going to get a glass. It's really, really warm. It was that warm I was thinking about, should I do the video with no top on? And I thought, no, people wouldn't like that. And then they'd have to put the music. Bow, chicka, wow, wow. I really would do that sometime. We'll see. So, phallic worship. And it really got me to think. We're talking about phallic worship. Phallic. And I showed you about the phallic worship and how the penis, and in a period of time in our history, the penis was known as the Peter. That's just a coincidence, Paul. Yes. It has many names, but it was known as Peter. That's why they say in the morning it gets rock hard or wood. So there we go. That's the. I'm trying to be clean, but I have to show these points and these connections. So we have that about the rock, and this is what this video is about. It's just on my journey. I've talked about rocks and stones in various videos over the years, and I've never really. I thought, oh wow, the nature of it, but not as deep as when I saw that post talking about the interpreters, the Peters, all the connections that they were talking about in that video. So phallic worship, the Peters. Now, people will see the obelisks. That's another name for it, or the Bethels, and they will concentrate on that. But the phallic worship is everywhere, and you don't see it. So I'm going to give you a few seconds. You smart asses, the ones I love, are in the chat now. Ryan, tell me, what are the other phallic worship that we see every day and you don't even realise? And I'll be honest, I didn't too until this video, and I sat and thought about it. So come on, lift music, or just look and then we'll inquire. Come on. Let's go to sleep. So what all these phallic worship, so obviously you got the Peters, the phallic stones, right? All buildings are Peters. Now you think, well, all buildings are not made in stone. No, some are built in wood, morning wood, Peters. But also, when you build something, what do? You erect. That blew my mind. So when we put something up, we erect it. Is that not phallic worship? Just like an obelisk, just like these Peter stones, standing up. All buildings stand up. And how you interpret life changes in these buildings. So you're living in a Peter, and you interpret everything differently from where your view is. Just like when I showed you that video last week, again from old videos, the vision, everything connected to the pillars, the doorway, the gateway. Crazy that, isn't it? All connected to stone and rock. The name Peter interpret phallic worship. We're living in a phallic. Well, it is, isn't it? No way how you want it. That spell says, right, we're building a house and we've erected it. Wow. That really got me. So I love when we're talking and looking into things like this. And I came across another one as well. Is remember when I was talking about the pillow, the stone pillow. Oh, what's his name now? Jacob's ladder. I talked about a ladder, didn't I, last week about the etymology for something. But Jacob slept on a pillar. Now, some people in the Kalahari and in places like that sleep on the shoulder. They dig their arm in and they sleep on the shoulder. And obviously a lot of people used to sleep on stone also to keep away from the bugs crawling in the ears. So what intrigued me is, in old videos, so if anyone's not watched them, I'll talk about it, but just go and check out the old videos. It may make sense then. So when I'm talking in the video a while ago, I think it's been in a few videos, I talk about the etymology of days. So I can't tell what today is, because you'll say, oh, he's done his video on that day. But we have Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday. And the day in Latin was die. So I said, isn't it funny that Sunday, Monday, Wednesday, Thursday, we die when we go to sleep because you're resting. Correct? And I talked about we get resurrected each morning. And now I get the goosebumps. I get emotional. I do. I even cry sometimes when I'm thinking about these things. So we die every night. Are we sacrificing ourselves on a Peter? Think about it. Wherever your bed is. Do do do. And get some music. Boo 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 doo. Are we not laying our heads for sacrifice on a Peter? A pillow, a pillar. That just blew me away. So each night we lay our heads on a pillar. Remember Jacob's pillar? He then erected it and it became a pillar to God, a holy place, a Bethel, a holy stone. So our pillars are holy stones, metaphorically. We die each night. We rebirth, we reborn each morning. That, how do you not get excited when we talk like this? And this is the only place where I can talk like this in reality a lot, because I'm talking to you guys. I do talk to people around me, but sometimes they're like, no more, Paul, no more. That just blew me away. And again, the connection to bricks. Think about it, the monoliths. And people asking, oh, they've done the monoliths in correlation with the stars, in correlations with the sun. But now, when you think about, yes, rock, Peters, they're to the gods. Altars were built on mountains, but also when they were erected, you still have them in church. So all this talking about stone and being dead and petrified, is this a worship? But we had a lot of stone cults in the Mediterranean area and a few other areas. And then one of the so-called leaders from their standpoint of view, like the Masons, the Freemasons. What do Masons and Freemasons involve? Yes, it's about stone. Carving stone, manipulating stone. Are we stone? I talked about how we're living in a chamber. Is this all revere and reverence to the earth, the stone that we are living in, the cave, the chamber? Because when we are looking at the compass and set, it has a G in, and I've just said, could it be Geo for the earth? And it's in that thing, isn't it? We see people, all the celebrities doing that symbol, and I've talked about how it is the sacral, but also could it be showing you the pyramid, the chamber, the compass and set? We're in closed in a chamber. Think about it in one form of sign language. Earth, they do that, or is it that? It's one of them. So you can see it's enclosed in a dome in a chamber. Are we not in a cave? Is it the cave of treasures? One verse, like I've shown you in videos, talks about how they were hiding from God. But there's another verse that you can go back into, and this is from Exodus. And again, these are all get translated slightly different. And it says, the Lord continued, look near me on this rock. Look for me near Peter. Petros, Petra. So all the different incarnations of that word Peter. As my glorious presence passes by, I will hide you in a crevice. the rock in the crevice of the rock and cover you with my hand. That is a symbol for earth. And what I've just read there shows you God said, Peter said, I will cover you with my hand. Stone, rock, chamber, cave. Etymology says that. I've showed you them in my video. Mind blown. I will cover you with my hand until I have passed by. Then I will remove my hand and let you see me from behind. I just get in, and again, not saying this is fact, I'm saying this is from my window. So this week, I'm seeing it from this point of view. Next week, I could set the lift up or the stairs. If you use the stairs, we get there slower. And that's why I always say, contradict yourself, change your opinion, because that means you're walking or going up floors. So you're changing the story because you're having a look at life. And these verses, again, I don't know word for word like a lot of you do, but it's intriguing when you start looking. And I was going to put information about another opinion on Peter. Peter is not the rock, it was God, Jesus. But that was just how it got mistranslated. And how many verses you saw Jesus saying, I am the rock, or you are the living rock, and all these things. It's just mind-blowing. And when you start to think a little bit different and go through all the old stuff, like I said, this is not super new stuff, but it's a super new perspective because it's been changed. Reading that information from that site made me change floors, and I saw it in new light, and I'm mind blown when you put all these things together. Are you not? People send me stuff all the time, and this sounds corny and cheesy, but I go with the flow. I go when I get a feeling. And I've said many times when I'm researching, I get goosebumps, I cry, I get emotional, I feel closer to God, the rock. I always have done. And people also say it sees it for orbs and stuff flying past the screen. Also, we do. So I feel close when I'm doing this. No way. No way. Tell me that you didn't just see that. Right there. Like wow. Hopefully that kept on there. That's just made me emotional because I've just like said, it's funny when I'm doing this, we see these orbs and lights, and I look down and just above here, I saw one. Crazy. So feel close when I'm doing this. No way. This is just who I am. I get emotional. I love just showing you a different piece, a different floor each week. And there's not enough of us doing that. Because when you, for instance, if I said something now, people say, no, that's not right. It's not fact. It's this. Well, show me that information, okay, and they give you an image from a website saying that. Or an image from a book, that. But is that not interpreting? Is that not an interpretation? God, there's another one then. All the world is a stage and we're merely players. You know, actors means agents. Stage, anagram for gates, the doors, the 11s, the pillars. And we're fighting over an interpretation, a different story. Information is just data, da'at, wisdom. It's all information. Right or wrong, it's a different story. Horror story, fiction, science fiction, non-fiction, and so on and so on. And just gonna get a drink. That was crazy. I really saw that one. I'm gonna have to rewind myself and hopefully see it. So I put things into this video today called Black Sheep Intermissions. And just like the pictures with order at the theatre, you have an intermission. And I wanted to just break it up because I don't like just sitting back and hearing someone read all the time. I like, that's why I don't do it a lot, because I have problems reading, interpreting, or translating. And so that's why I broke it up. And when I'm thinking about rocks, one of the holiest rocks or holiest places is where the location of the holies is. And to certain faiths, the Temple Mount is known as Dome on the Rock, which then inside entombs the foundation stone. So you can see when we're talking about these things, and when you think of, it's just stone, but when you start going deeper into it, and then you're talking about the Peters and the Pritors and the where is people carving hieroglyphs onto, petroglyphs, rock carving, rock glyphs of the gods. It's that important that they carved it into stone. So this holy, the place where to Jews, obviously the holies of the holies, the temple was built, and then to Muslims and so on, is a dome on the rock. And that famous octagon, walls 11 meters high. And how would you get into that? But 11 entrances, gates. So, because they're only allowed one, the nearest, and this is just information I found, the nearest place that they can worship is the Wailing Wall, which is at the side. Wailing Wall. 11 letters. Built. Took 11 years to build. Just a coincidence. So it might, this is why I show these things, because they are putting that information out. They want to get in the 11s where they can. And that's why I show it. And what intrigued me then is when you start to look at other things like the Kaaba, the black rock, the black stone. And that has been rebuilt 11 times. And the walls are roughly about 11 meters high. 11. You then go into other religions. You've got the Ben stone, which creation, it formed out of the primordial waters. The mound, the rock came out. So you have in these different religions talking about stones and rocks. You have Rupes Negra, the black rock. People talk that as being Eden or other magical fantastic place. They showed the map from Mercator. Mercator didn't leave his house. So this was just information passed to him by travelling monks and sailors and so on. And all maps are spam. It's information, whether it's your information, but it's just a story basically in the end. So then when we're showing you these different stones and how many times these have been built into 11s, I was like, no way. And I just wanted to break that up using these things. But as I was talking about the Freemasonry before, and I'm talking about being entombed, the compass, renowned, shows you the degrees on here. I've been talking about for ages. And JSOL was talking about it again this week. Adds to 11. The 90 degrees set at the bottom, the base, the foundation stone, when you add it to that, added to 11. Wow. Things that we've been talking for a while on this channel, but you forget. Because how many times you do a video, that is what's fresh in your mind. And then they included a little bit about the Latter-day Saints, how they use seer stones, and and he found tablets, was it gold tablets, gold in the ground. He was shown them to be an angel, and he had spectacles to translate or interpret that, and they called them, the glasses, interpreters. So these are all very, very intriguing to me. And when we show all these things, does it not make you go, wow, I can see a connection there? Now, how that connection affects you may be different to how it affects me. It might be cart, rubbish, bollards, as I say, but it's just a different floor. It's like I've given you the code to the elevator so you can go and take a look. You don't have to stay on that floor. I'm encouraging you to go on different floors and check everyone's opinion out, because then you can then form what, you know, when you see it on TV, they're like, oh, with an angle from there, and an angle from here, and an angle from here, and an angle from there, like LiDAR does, when it shows you buried structures. It takes pictures of the location and puts into a 3D map to give you a 3D all the way around rendition. That's what you've seen. If you go to different floors, you're just giving yourself another image, another side, and then you can make your reality to what it is. And we need each other, and we need to look into this. And in ancient times, they were even born on bricks. Holy magical bricks. So in all videos, when I talk about, all in all, are we just another brick in the wall? Well, think about it. You know what I mean? Law, you know, the Peter showed you how to live by the law. Anagram that, or reverse it, law is wall. So are we just pieces in the wall? It's just, I just get excited, guys, and hopefully I share these things with you. They make sense, but I just get inspired, and that's why I did this video. I found some new information, and I wanted to share it. I wanted to visit this floor, and it always reminds me of that famous Scottish advert. Not advert. It was like a sketch show, and the Scottish guys were in the lift, and new software was fit to the lift, and it's called, they wanted to go to the 11th floor, if I remember, and they were going 11, and it wouldn't answer him, and they were changing their accents. It's brilliant. If you ever see that, just type in the Scottish 11 elevator clip. Really is hilarious. So this is why I wanted to share this with you, all what people can call wisdoms. But why are all these nations and cultures and civilizations talking about stone? I'm talking about, I mean, we even have in the community, people talk about melted stone and melted bricks. It's the Peters. And when we see all these different verses connecting stone to that, it makes you think what was being melted was them, the Peters, the reverence of a mountain, brick, stone, altars. I know some of them are wooden, but most altars in churches are stone. And that's why I had to put it on a bit. Why is it stone and carved when it tells you not to do that? But is it okay in that? You know, so this is a deep thinking video. And I get excited, I get emotional, I want to share it with you. Some people won't agree with what I'm saying. I don't blame you. But I'm not telling you this is fact. This is just my journey to this floor that I'm sharing with you this week. People can't get my head around it sometimes. I'm like, guys, this is not fact. It's not what you believe in your faith. I'm just showing you. For instance, I found that information and I just interpret and catch and put the puzzles together to show you guys. Does not mean I'm 100% in. And that's why some people just go away. When people recommend a channel, they're not recommending the person, the besties, and they agree with everything they've ever done on the channel. No, they just like some of the things and the attitude of people on those channels. You know, we're just you and me, and I don't want to change. No, like I've not got enough energy to change. But you know what I mean? The transformation. And this is why I want to keep visiting this stones, because I've done the videos about the London stone, and no one really knows what that is. Why is a stone being so revered? Is it linked to Brutus? They said that was a myth. Is it a part of the Wailing Wall? Is that a myth? Is it a part of some ancient Peter temple? Is it part of the Mithras temple? Remember, London was named by the Welsh Landain, and in an old video about the Bank of England and London that I did on my channel, I talk about that. Landain, it was based on Diana, Diana's temple. Diana is tied etymologically and to, yes, Janus Peter. So, what is this stone so revered that they put it in a shitty building at the time for a long time? Because it was, you can see it when you look on the maps. At 111, remember, the temples that idol to pillars were 11s, but also 3 pillars. 111. And it was entombed, and it was covered in the wall in Cannon Street. It's now in the museum. But that, you're like, wow. So that stone is so revered. And again, that's why I was talking about royalty. They think they are so much better than us because they're regal, they are royal blood. Yet they have to sit on a stone to be coronated. The stone of Scone, the stone of destiny. That's why I put that in the video too, just to show you. So hopefully that stayed. I did put the thing in for copyright, but you know what you poo tubes like. So these things are just showing you the reverence of stone. You know what I mean? And think about it. And I want to give you guys some homework. I did tell you last week, didn't I? I'm going to give you some homework. Just type into your phones, your laptops, your tablets, whatever you use to get to the webs, and look into all the words we use that stone or rock is put in. I'm caught between a rock and a hard place. Things like this. And you'll go, wow. All videos I talked about marbles from rock, from the stone, the mineral from the ground, meant the death, the spiritually death. You can go on and on and on. But is it not wow when you think about it? You see all these old megalithic structures, megalithic blocks, so big, people are going, how did they cut them with the copper chisels and stuff? We always see it. How did they move it with a horse and carriage? Think. These are Peters. And a form of interpreters of rock is stonemasons. Rock, working with rock. Are these the Peter Masons? Petros. So, like I've always said, and people have always talked about, was there a civilization? We talk about golden eras. People talk about Tartarian, Tartary. Tartary is the Latin for Tartar. Tartarus. Not Tartarus, Tartaria. And these Peters showed humans how to wall their cities. Start thoughts. Don't say anything. Law, maritime law. How to grow shit and live life, and how to sacrifice to the gods. Pillars. Pillow. And that's all tied to the Peters. Yes, Janus Peter was one of them. And my information has showed you obviously more in regard to Janus being, the beginning, phallic worship. I've showed you in all these videos. But when you start looking at it from someone else's perspective who's not seen the information, say I've just visited their floor, saw their information, wow. And then obviously the floor I am on when I'm looking at certain information will be different. But I don't get triggered. I get inspired. That's the difference. You person out there now because you're so butthurt. because I've said something that goes against your faith. You're not liking it. So I'm going to curse you now. And that's what they're saying. I'm going to curse you now. I'm going to leave a nasty little comment. Thought you were supposed to be in a community. Thought you were supposed to promote equality. A different opinion. Doesn't matter. And it's true. People just go again. Whatever triggers them, doesn't matter. We should know better. That's what I've said. I ain't perfect. I want forgiveness for some things I've said over the years and done. I'm working on it. I want to treat everyone with respect, with love. Just who I am. I'd rather be happy than fueled by rage and anger and that evil, which a lot of people are who trolling. Don't want to go there. I want to live in a happier place. And this is what's all connecting. So all this information makes me happy to interpret and look into. And you guys inspire me daily. I'm feeling down and feeling drained of energy because I've had a long night. And someone says something nice and I'm like, wow, I needed that. And then I'm off to do the fight again. So all these things, and look at these stones, just made me want more. And again, there's all the stone cults, there's all everything. Because now it's interpreting, the term interpreter is tied to the Peters. So is patriarch and things like this. Patriarch, the one. Remember the G, the etymology, it does look like that. It looks like an old one. Freemason was added to 10 or 1. If you take away the 0, binary is 1 and 0s. So there's a lot more information where I can go to with this. And I just love doing that. So I'm not going anywhere. Barring somewhere when I'm sleeping for a long time. You know, I've got health issues at the minute. But I'm still coming back and I'm still going to share. Life is just life. I'm trying to get myself there. I'm living a lot healthier now. Not that I wasn't, but you know. And I'm trying to exercise more. Hopefully you can see the change in me. But I don't get anywhere if I don't have any strength. You are my strength. You're the people I talk to every day. So think about it, guys. I know we all have bad days. And on those bad days where you want to curse someone, don't. Don't waste your energy. Go and enjoy yourself. Go and see your children. Go and read a book. Go and watch a film. Anything. Whatever makes you happy. Why is that so much bad? We have so many people telling you don't do this, don't do that, don't do this. And we do it to ourselves. So I want to thank you guys. And again, I'm not finished with this topic. I'm going to keep working on it. Like I said, I've done 30 videos in regard to stones. You know. But this is the intriguing nature of this. Talking about stones and the connection to the gods, the priests, everything. Now people say, oh, that information is wrong. Cool. Still inspired me. Still inspired me to make a video. And again, that's just because you're looking from a different floor. I visited the floor and I enjoyed what I saw. What is the harm in that? There's none. We restrict ourselves. If you want to stick on, if you want to stay on your floor, cool. I don't. I want to go to different floors, see the difference, see how people think, because it's inspiring. So hopefully, guys, you've enjoyed this video, and that's why I titled. Basically, I even forgot what I titled it. The last video did really, really well, and that's down to you guys. But this video is called How Did I Miss This? And this is the information. How did I miss this? Talking about Peters. I know what Peters. Peter meaning rock and other variations on it. I knew that, but I didn't know it in that context. Inspired. Inspired by that. Don't agree with everything, but you can still be inspired. And I'm inspired by you. I'm inspired by my family. And guys, I just appreciate the love and the support. Again, if you want to help the channel, please check that you're still subscribed, because it is unsubscribing people by the droves daily. So please like, share and subscribe. If you want to help me in the channel, please hit the barcode thingy, the bar, or the link will be in the description. So guys, take care, stay safe, always wear a smile, don't let the bar stools grind us down, and again, do one good deed a day. Go and put a smile on someone's face, make someone smile. We don't smile enough. Take care. Bye.